everyone. My name is Becky Robinson, and I am so thrilled to be with Julie Winkle Giulioni today to talk about the importance of career conversations and the topic of her book, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Becky. Nice to talk to you this morning.
Nice to talk to you too. Before we dive into our conversation, I want to share a little bit about Julie. Julie has spent the past 25 years working with organizations worldwide to improve performance through leadership and learning. Julie has been named one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers, and she is the co-author of the Amazon and Washington Post bestseller, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, Career Conversations Employees Want. And I know, Julie, that you are preparing for the launch of the second edition of that fantastic book, and I look forward to hearing more about that later in our conversation. But as we start today, Julie, can you tell me what some of the biggest or most common mistakes or missteps leaders make when they're having career conversations with people?
Yeah, there are a couple, and I guess maybe just stepping back, maybe the bigger misstep is not realizing how much of the heavy lifting of career development really happens through conversation itself. In so many organizations, so many leaders feel like career development is the process, and it's the paperwork, and it's the programs, and all of those things that, while important, are artifacts of development. They're not the art of development. So one of the missteps is just not realizing that the conversation is where the development really happens. Because when you think about how you've grown, how you've learned, how you've developed, it's probably been through relationship and conversation. And so I guess that's the biggie, is just, not realizing how powerful conversations, even small, short ones, really are for their relationships and for the development of those around them. And then the second one, I think, probably has to do mostly with, loving too much, taking on too much, trying to own too much of the development. A lot of managers actually feel kind of a heavy burden around career development because they think it's all theirs to do. They've got to carry an employee over the career finish line. And in the process, we've kind of trained employees to be more passive consumers of career development services rather than the owners they need to be. So, leaders still have a very important role, but it's a role to guide and to facilitate and to encourage and nurture and support, not to do the heavy lifting.
That's a really helpful distinction, Julie. So can you tell us what some important ingredients are of a great career conversation?
Yes. Juicy questions are just the bedrock of a great career conversation. Juicy, insightful, reflection-inspiring questions that really cause employees to kind of stop for a moment and scratch their heads and think a little harder than they normally would about two different things. Frequently when we think about career development and the kinds of questions and conversations that you might want to have, the focus is on more that inward. Who is that person? What are they about? What do they love doing? What are their values, their interests, all of that kind of thing. And that's vital. That's obviously foundational. But career conversations are also about helping people look outward and forward, helping them understand what's the business landscape. What are the needs of our organization? How are things changing? So that they can begin to frame their thinking, their aspirations, the action that they want to take in service of career development in a direction that's going to be viable and vibrant, rather than perhaps pursuing paths that really don't serve either the organization or the longer term business context. The other thing, go ahead.
No. Well, I was going to say, I'm fairly certain that there are lots of those juicy questions in the book. And I was wondering if you might share some examples with us.
Oh, sure. Yes, there are tons of juicy questions in the book. And we also have a free app, Help Them Grow, on the Apple and Android store that will ping leaders with those questions daily just to get into the habit of asking. But questions like, what's one skill that could make you twice as effective in your current role? Or, and these are the questions that really don't get the airtime that they deserve, questions like, what kind of work do you want to be doing? What kinds of problems do you want to be solving? What kinds of clients do you want to work with? What kinds of technologies do you want to start to master? All those questions that are about what people want to do rather than what they want to be. Because that's the other thing about career conversations is so frequently when a leader goes into that conversation, they go into this automatic mode of, so where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And the problem is that the workplace just doesn't operate like that. Long-term strategic plans don't even play out at the 3 to 5 year mark any longer. And so, and it's a bit of a promise that perhaps career development is about promotions that most managers are don't have a lot of. So if we can shift the conversation away from what people want to be, sort of the grown-up version of what do you want to be when you grow up question, we can shift away from that toward what people want to do, the kind of work, the technology, the problems they want to solve, the challenges that they want to take on. Suddenly we open up terrific possibilities for folks to grow right in role rather than having to wait and perhaps be promoted or move laterally to a new role.
That's really helpful. And you had another point that you wanted to make earlier about another important ingredient in career conversations before I asked you for some specific examples.
Yeah. So I think curiosity probably is the other one. My co-author, Beverly Kay, and I have written several articles on this topic because it's so important. It's one thing to have the right questions, but it can become kind of mechanical question, answer. And that's not the kind of authentic exchange that really drives career outcomes. And so when we include curiosity, really the deep-seated intention to learn more, to understand, to get on the same wavelength with someone, that is a game changer. And there are lots of side benefits of curiosity as well that leaders can enjoy beyond career conversations.
That's a really helpful point, Julie, to ask questions, but really to be curious, to know what the answers are and to be discovering, not asking questions that you already know the answer to.
Right. And if, to your point, that's perfect, Becky, you're right. Because if you're asking questions you don't know the answers to, then you've got to listen more intently. And that's one other ingredient to consider is how do we track, make some notes, keep track of what people are telling you, because you don't want it to be Groundhog Day every time you have one of these conversations. To be able to look back at just some real simple notes about what folks have said they want to do, they're interested in, they love, their passions, whatever it might be, and be able to go back to them and say, hey, last week we were talking about how you want to solve this kind of problem, and we just so happen to have this opportunity on a project team or whatever it might be. And when we start connecting those dots, when people really feel like they're being heard and something's happening with what they're telling you, it expands the volume and the quality of that conversation.
Sure, that's really helpful. And I know, Julie, a question that I've heard a lot in these types of sessions is, if these career conversations are informal and they're supposed to happen frequently and not really in a structured way, how important is that documentation, if you will, when you think about more structured HR conversations?
Yeah. One of the barriers to doing career development really is the administrative stuff. I've had so many managers tell me, I'd love to do this career development stuff, but the administrivia is killing me. And so we've got to be careful about not setting a standard for documentation that creates conditions where people just say, forget about it. I don't have time for this. And so I really encourage people to figure out whatever their go-to system is, whether it's notes on their computer or just a simple sheet of paper. And after having one of these informal ad hoc conversations, just put down a couple of words. It doesn't have to be beautiful prose. It doesn't have to be entered into any kind of an HR system. It's just a couple of words that will jog your own memory so that when an opportunity comes up or the next time you talk with someone, you're not looking like you're starting from ground zero yet again. They know that you've been listening and that you're advancing the conversation.
I'm sure it probably increases people's sense of engagement and commitment to the organization if they feel like they're known and understood and remembered.
Absolutely. And it builds tremendous trust and credibility with the leader as well.
Sure. Well, so Julie, at the beginning of the conversation, I mentioned that you do have a new edition of Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go that you've been working on, and that new edition will be released in January 2019. And I would love to hear, having worked on the original edition over 6 years ago now, could you share with us some of the new research and information that you're including in the new edition of the book?
Yep, definitely. We're really excited about the new edition of the book. And I guess the biggest shift is in the title, and that kind of telegraphs a little bit of a shift within the book itself. The subtitle is changing from Career Conversations Employees Want to Career Conversations Organizations Need and Employees Want, because it's so much more than just what employees want, although we know it's a huge priority, one of the major reasons employees stay or leave an organization. But increasingly, we are so aware of the organizational impact of career development. I recently wrote an article and likened career development to a Swiss Army knife for leaders, because it does so many different things. Organizations need the engagement, the discretionary effort, the retention, the productivity and profitability that career development can deliver. And so we've included more of that subtext throughout the book, the organizational requirement for career development, as well as the employee desire for it. We have also expanded the context a little bit, because just 6 years ago, the employment landscape was entirely different. And today we've got, the gig economy and part-timers and side hustles and, really different way of working. And in many organizations, in many cases, there's almost this new form of discrimination. It's sort of like employment status discrimination when it comes to development, because only that handful of full-time traditional balance sheet employees get the development attention. And yet, if we can put some attention toward the entire workplace, the results that we can see are pretty enormous. Two other quick shifts that we've made. One is we have a whole new chapter that we've included, and it's all about the cultural markers that we found in organizations that really are good at supporting career development, because we know individual managers can move the needle by using these practices with their teams, but when the organization comes behind it and supports that with some cultural components, there's just no stopping it for managers and the organizations as a whole. And then go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, I know we've talked before, Julie, about some of the types of organizations that you included in your research and really understanding the organizational impact of these initiatives. So I bet our listeners would be interested to hear about that.
Oh, yeah. So over the last 6 years, we've been working with organizations literally worldwide, from Brazil to Russia to Lithuania to, all over, to understand what kinds of conditions support career development. We've worked primarily in the for-profit arena, in the corporate environment. And what we've been able to identify are 6 different characteristics that really enable organizations to raise their game and support leaders. And so we've identified that, and there's even a short self-assessment within the new edition of the book.
Wonderful. And you were going to tell us a few other things that folks can expect in the new edition.
Yes, just one additional thing is Barrett Kohler, our wonderful publisher of Help Them Grow, is really on the kind of cutting edge of how to support people to take books and turn them into just not knowledge in your head, but action, in the workplace. And so they've asked us to create a card deck. And so we're just finalizing that. It's really a cool card deck, 7 different activities that you can engage in to help build the habit of engaging in career development. So we're excited about that coming out at the same time as the book in January.
Wow. Julie, it seems like there is so much to look forward to. And for those who want to get connected even more with Julie, I have a couple of action steps that you can take today. The first one is if you would like to anticipate the new edition coming out, you can go to Amazon and you can already pre-order the second edition of Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. And if you'd like to get some additional learning in advance of January, one thing you can do is go to Julie's website, juliewinklegiulioni.com, and I'll put that in the comments on this Facebook Live. And what you can do is you can put in your email address to stay connected on Julie's mailing list. And when you do that, you'll actually receive a free download of the first 2 chapters of the original edition of the book. So we hope you'll take some action today to learn more from Julie about the way career conversations can impact your relationship with those you're leading and also the organizations in which you're working. Julie, thank you so much for investing time with me today.
Thank you, Becky.
Have a great day, everyone.